Ladies and gentlemen, the next contestant in the 2010 Messenger Community News Mortgage Choice Golden Gavel competition from LJ Hooker Prospect, Mr. Mark Shariglazov.
Ladies and gentlemen, 81 Jeffcott Street holds a special place in the history of South Australia, built in 1868 to a design by architects Wright and Woods. It is no coincidence that these renowned architects, who, by the way, were responsible for prominent Adelaide buildings, including the Town Hall and the Adelaide GPO, were entrusted with the huge responsibility of bringing to life the vision of the Reverend James Fairfax, who was the first principal of Christ's First School in North Adelaide. This magnificent hall, ladies and gentlemen, wasn't just a school in North Adelaide, it was in fact the first, playing a vital role in the lives of so many South Australians, including one of our prominent favourite sons, Sir Thomas Playford. Today is your opportunity to add your name to the history books as the proud new owner of this property in North Adelaide that is truly a landmark property. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to you all. We act today under instructions from our registered proprietors as well as the appointed selling agents, Fox Real Estate, represented by Mr. Andrew Fox. My name is Mark Shariglazov, and as your auctioneer, I am delighted to be able to be assisting in the next exciting chapter of this building's history, ladies and gentlemen. But before we get to that point, it's essential that I cover off on the rules and legalities of today's auction. The auction will be conducted in accordance with the standard terms and conditions of sale, which are set down jointly by the Society of Auctioneers and Appraisers, as well as the Real Estate Institute of South Australia. These terms and conditions, together with a copy of the contract, certificate of title and Form 1, have been here on site for the past half hour for your perusal, as well as for the past 3 business days at the office premises of Fox Real Estate in Melbourne Street, North Adelaide. Should you be successful with your bidding, you will be required to come forward and execute a contract of sale with a deposit of 10% of your purchase price payable upon the fall of the hammer. The balance, of course, will be due upon settlement, which has been set down for Friday the 21st of June 2010. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know several of you throughout the marketing process have requested variations to either your deposit amount or your settlement date. What I'd like to say is some of those variations have been approved, signed off by the vendor, and if that's the case and it's been confirmed with you, bid with confidence, because if you are successful, you'll be purchasing on the terms and conditions as per that approved variation request. It is also important for me to mention that if you are successful here today, you will have an insurable interest in the property from the fall of the hammer. I therefore strongly advise, to protect your interests, that you ensure there is adequate insurance cover placed over the property to protect your interest in the improvements on the land. 2 titles are being sold together as a whole, with the property described as the whole of the improved land in Certificate of Title, Register Book Volumes 5863, Folio 432, together with Volume 5848, Folio 555, commonly known, of course, as number 81, Jeffcott Street in North Adelaide. The current owners are not registered for GST. Good news for you as buyers, because it means that a GST component to your purchase price does not apply in today's auction. It's a legislative requirement that to bid at auction, you must register as a bidder, and interested parties who have done so are in possession of Forms R3, R4 and R5. The prescribed standard conditions of auction are set out in full in that Form R4. However, as your auctioneer, I'd like to summarise those terms as follows. Any person may bid at the auction in person or through their proxy or representative, subject to the conditions of auction. The property is being offered subject to a reserve price. The highest bidder...
1.2 million.
Ma'am, thank you for putting forward your bid. And a little bit later on, I'd be more than happy to look at that. But can I just cover off on the legalities first, and then I'll give you the first bite of the cherry to make an opening bid. Thank you for showing your interest so early on, though. It won't be too long, I promise. As we were saying, there is a reserve price. The highest bidder, who's either at or above that reserve price, will be the successful purchaser, and that bid will be the purchase price. The vendor does reserve the right to bid up to 3 times, up to but not at or exceeding the reserve price, but rest assured that any such bids will be clearly declared as being with the vendor. The auctioneer will determine the successful bid, and bids will not be accepted after the hammer falls. Bids are made on a cash unconditional basis, and no calling off rights apply for anyone who bids and purchases either at or on the day of auction. And finally, as referred to in the prescribed form R5, collusive practices at auction are in fact unlawful. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience in me covering off on those rules. I would like to pause for a few brief moments before we get to the exciting part to see if any of you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Auctioneer. In the future, I might want to cut off the rear lot and build a second house. Will that be possible?
Sir, thank you very much for that question. And we have had a number of interested parties throughout the marketing asking similar questions as to what can and can't be done to the property. There are heritage significant buildings towards the rear of the land, and I don't know what your plans entail with relation to those. I would say that the heritage buildings you'd need to apply to the Department of Heritage, and of course any development, subdivision, etc. will need to be pursued through the appropriate channels, and they'll give you an answer one way or another. Are there any further questions? Well, ladies and gentlemen, evidenced by your silence, Mr. Andrew Fox has done a fantastic job over the marketing period in clarifying the details of this property. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no intention to be morbid, but if this property were a human, it would be a skeleton, a corpse devoid of life. Sadly, we have seen too many such buildings eradicated from our landscape and forever lost to future generations. 81 Jeffcott Street has, however, been saved. Listed on the State Heritage Register, meaning that we can guarantee the revitalisation of this magnificent example of classic Adelaide period architecture. Michael Fielder Architects have, if you like, commenced the resuscitation with their exciting plans to resurrect this gracious structure with the creation of 3 apartments of impressive proportions and striking design. The excitement lies in the multiple possibilities that this rare and unique opportunity has to offer. Here we have, for the astute buyer, a ready-made project with plans approved by the Adelaide City Council. North Adelaide is endowed with a vibrant village feel, convenience that is second to none, and most importantly, I think the aspect that lacks in some other parts of Adelaide that is irreplaceable. It has an abundance of architectural charm. This is the suburb of choice for many of South Australia and Adelaide's most prominent and affluent citizens. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, in an article in the City North Messenger in March this year, the Australian Taxation Office was quoted as confirming North Adelaide to be the richest suburb in South Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, today you could enter that rich suburb and become one of only 438 owners who have a state heritage listed building in the City of Adelaide Council area. What an opportunity. In no exaggerated terms, chances like this don't come up very often. The time has come for you to speak. I'd love to get into the exciting part now and open the bidding. We did have a preemptive bid of 1.2 million, and I thank you for that, ma'am. We are hoping for a start